Hello, everybody. Let me know if you can hear me with your little thumbs up button at the bottom of the screen. Thank you, Nadine. And thank you, everybody, for joining today. We are just waiting for people to come in, including, in fact, our guest speaker, Megan, who has not connected. There is Megan. Hooray. Welcome, everybody. Okay. If you have not been to a LinkedIn audio event before, it's a little bit like Clubhouse on LinkedIn, if that's something that you know. So it's a conversation. It's here for you to be able to interact with the people who are giving the talk. And at the end, there will be time for questions. So to begin with, I'm going to ask the questions because I'm the host, so I get to go first. And then if you have questions at the end, you have a little raise hand button at the bottom, which will allow you to join in and speak. So let's get going. I'm Charlotte Rooney, for you, those of you who don't know me. I am an anti-burnout coach and the founder of A Half Managed Mind. I'm on a mission to make the world of work work for us as opposed to the other way around. Before we get stuck in, give me a thumbs up if this is the first time you have done a LinkedIn audio event. Welcome, Lawrence, and welcome, Megan and Chloe and Nadine. Oh, brilliant. So we're a bunch of newbies. That's wonderful. We will all give each other a lot of grace. In that case, Megan, let me hand over to you. Can you introduce yourself to everybody here? Let us know, a little bit about your story and what it is that you do.
Sure. Hi, Charlotte. So nice to connect with you here. And yeah, first audio event for me as well. So very exciting.
Amazing.
Thanks everyone for joining. So my name is Megan Camacho. I'm a career and life coach for working women. I'm particularly passionate about working mothers who are looking to make a return from a career break or wanting to make a career change. And I focus especially on things around self-care, setting boundaries, perfectionism. I think it affects women so much. And I really see it a lot in the working mothers that I've coached myself and also through my own personal experiences. So these are topics that I am very passionate about and love to talk about because I think the more we do, the more we can raise awareness and the more we can support people in these things like burnout and trouble with setting boundaries.
100%. I think it's such an important niche. And I really do think that it is unfortunately true that a lot of these issues affect women more than men because of the way people are socialized. I mean, that is absolutely not to say that, men don't also have problems with perfectionism and boundary setting and particularly boundary maintenance. So I am excited to dive in and we'll spend sort of, maybe 10 or 15 minutes talking us, and then I will open it up to other people for questions. Perhaps, and let's just start with kind of the basics. How would you define perfectionism in this case, and how might it be showing up for people so they can recognize that in themselves?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because it can definitely show up in different ways for different people. One of the common things that we see with perfectionism is fear of making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's interesting with perfectionism because it can often be seen as a positive thing. How often do we hear, especially if you are doing things like interviews or you're in a workplace where people are like, oh, I'm a bit of a perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to make mistakes. Everything's got to be perfect. But what I always like to challenge people on is what is the definition of perfect? What does perfect look like? Because if we were to ask a simple question to people, something like, what is your idea of a perfect day? Everybody would give a different response. And it doesn't mean that that response is right or wrong. They're all correct answers because it's perfect to you. So we're actually putting this pressure on ourselves to be quote unquote perfect when perfect doesn't actually exist.
So true. I mean, even I often find if you ask someone, what would your perfect day be like, or what would your perfect job be like, we can't even answer. We don't even know, even for ourselves. So yeah, I mean, that's something that I talk with my clients about all the time. What is good enough? We often tend to be, recovering perfectionist here. I'm going to put my hand up there. We're the kind of people who, who think only perfect is good enough. I mean, for me, I always think of this story, of like little kid, primary school. I've come home from school with a test result, and I think I had like, I don't know, 18 out of 20 or something, which is pretty good, for a primary school. And I was so proud of myself, and I showed it, I think it was to my dad, and he just looked at me and went, well, what happened to the other two? I was like, and I think we do that to ourselves sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. We can be really excessively critical and hard on ourselves. And that can definitely lead to tendencies of perfection.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's, you touched on it a little bit, but let's get really explicit. Like, what is the danger with that in terms of how might perfectionist tendencies make you more likely to burn out? And while you're thinking about that, I would love to see a thumbs up from anybody who recognizes themselves in this, who is afraid of making mistakes, who always wants to do everything as well as they possibly can. Yes, Mia.
Yeah, we're right there with you, Mia.
And you too, Nadine.
Yeah, well, I think as you were asking, Charlotte, what are some of the dangers of it, is that when we have these pressures of perfection on ourselves, we really set ourselves up for these impossible standards that simply don't exist. So we're constantly striving for something that we can never obtain, and we can never reach that level because it's not real. And because of that, we end up putting even more pressure, more stress, more overwhelm on us, which then all of those things can lead to burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. And that pressure and that sort of stress and all of that can often look like, working really late because you're just putting that final tweak to a project or to a presentation, or, agreeing that you are going to attend that extra meeting to put some final touches to something when you really don't have the space and you really should be moving on to something else. Which leads us very nicely onto the second part of what we were going to talk about today, which is boundaries. And I mean, hey, who doesn't love a boundary, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people love them, but struggle to set them.
Yes. And I know we have a couple of people who are listening today and who got in touch because they were specifically interested in this piece around boundaries, which is, how do you set a boundary that really serves you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what is really important with boundaries is self-awareness and recognizing when you're starting to feel those signs of the burnout and the overwhelm. If you're starting to feel panicky, if you're starting to feel anxious, if let's think about in a workplace context, it could be you're checking your emails late at night or on the weekends because you're worried about a response that you might get, or a piece of work that might come in. And so those things are happening because you've got that overwhelm. Many people say overwhelm is because of lack of planning. So when things are coming up unexpectedly that you haven't prepared for, and then not being able to say no because we are raised to be nice. If we think of it in the context of women are generally told, be a nice girl, be a good girl, be helpful, be kind. And you don't want to disappoint. You don't want to let people down. If you're a perfectionist, setting boundaries can be really difficult because you feel like you're being mean, and it's got all kinds of negative connotations associated with it. But what we have to realize is that when we start saying no, it actually gives us space to say yes to more things, and to more of the things that energize you and feel good to you and motivate you, and help to reduce the overwhelm.
Yes, absolutely. And I often like to think about it in the opposite sense as well, that every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else, and you might not be thinking about that thing that you're saying no to. And in this case, what we're often saying no to is ourselves and the time that we need to take care of ourselves and restore and replenish so that we can really be working, at our best level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is really important to also look at things a bit deeper around, how much do you value yourself? What kind of self-care practices do you have in place? And when I say self-care, I never want it to feel like it's, oh, just go have a bubble bath, put a face mask on. I just think like that annoys me so much when people think that's what self-care is, because when we really dig deep into it, self-care is, do you really love yourself? Do you really value yourself? Do you feel that you are worthy of whatever you desire, or whatever you want to say no to because it's not the right time for you, or you're overloaded, or it's just not a good fit? when you are confident in those things, that really helps you to get stronger in setting those boundaries, because you know that it's the best decision for you. And when it's the best decision for you, it's the best decision for everyone else around you as well.
Yeah, I love that framing. I'd love to know from people who are listening, again, give me a thumbs up or an emoji reaction if you feel really confident and strong about setting your boundaries and maintaining those. Oh, Amy, great. Oh, Lawrence also, excellent. I'm really proud. I'm really glad to hear that. So Megan, one more question before I open it up, because I see we've got people who are raising their hands and ready to dive in with some questions, but I just want one more. And so say I've set a boundary. I'm going to imagine a boundary here. So say I've decided that I am going to finish work at 6 p.m. I'm going to, that's when my workday is going to end. I'm going to close my laptop. How do you help people to maintain that and to actually stand up for themselves when, the boss comes along and says, oh, hey, can't you just stay late this one time because we've got this big presentation tomorrow for this client and we really need you to make the presentation deck, for example?
Yeah, that's a common one, right? That's a tricky situation that many people find themselves in. So I think one thing that's really important with boundaries is communication, is making sure that the people around you are clear what you can and cannot do. So if you were somebody that, let's say, needed to leave at 6 p.m. that night, I would actually have had that conversation earlier in the daytime to say to that boss or whoever that was, I really need to leave at 6 p.m. tonight because I have something important to do, or I just need to leave at 6 p.m. That's a full sentence in itself. You don't really need to explain yourself or give any further reasons. Now, sometimes it's also important that we recognize, we may need to be flexible or be realistic in some certain situations. Maybe it is a genuine emergency. But you could also think about if 6 p.m. is your definite, you have to leave, you've got something urgent, or you just need to get out of there and give yourself a break. That's plenty valuable as well. Is there a possibility that you could help out a bit in the morning time? Something like that might be able, to give you that flexibility to set that boundary in the evening, but still help out in the morning time if that's feasible too.
Yeah, that could be really helpful. I find also in easing the discomfort that we might have in refusing a request, because I think a lot of us, we do want to be helpful. I mean, it's something that we think is really important, being collaborative, being helpful, driving towards the goals with our colleagues. A mentor of mine once told me that, and she was a partner at a really fancy firm and, worked there for 20 years, had kids, all of that kind of thing. And she said, nobody cares why you can't do something. So don't bother to go into that second part. Oh, I can't because, and making excuses and trying to so nobody cares. Just say I can't, but this is what I can do. And I found that to be a really helpful framing, because it means I'm saying no, but I'm not saying no. So it feels a little bit more comfortable, but I am also keeping that space for me when I really can't.
I think that's such a good suggestion and good advice.
Yeah, it's served me well. Okay, so I'm now going to open this up for people to ask questions. If you have a question that you would like to raise, or a comment or an experience that you'd like to share, we would love to hear it. You have a little raise hand button, which kind of requests to speak, and then I can bring you up here. The only thing I'm going to say as I bring Amy up is I have had feedback before, and apparently there's feedback on my microphone right now. Sorry, I don't know how to fix that. I'll figure it out for the next time. But I have also had feedback that sometimes people in the audience can't hear the question answer. So when Amy comes up, if you can hear her, please give us a thumbs up. If you can't hear her, we'll just have to repeat her question before answering. Okay, let's see. Is that working? Are you able to come up, Amy? Oh, great. So you should be able to unmute.
Yes. So firstly, I just want to say, Megan, you said precisely what I had to do last night with my boss. I was asked to do something, couldn't do it. And what I found is that particularly with difficult bosses, phrasing things in terms of what you can do is always like a good thing. It just sounds better. So I do what I am about to go on a 10-day staff retreat / work thing. I just started this gig last week. I have a pretty demanding and difficult boss, unfortunately. And I am one of the boundaries that I set was I requested to work from home today to prepare because we leave tomorrow at 4 in the morning. I was told, well, sorry, you can't work at home. So I was given the option to just take the day off. So that's what I'm doing to prepare. Do you have any advice for maintaining boundaries during a staff retreat when we're all kind of sharing the same space and it's quite easy for work and recreation to overlap, and potentially as a new employee I want to start a dynamic in which I'm definitely someone that people can come to and rely on, but at the same time I am maintaining those boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been in situations like that as well, Amy, where I've had to go away for several days, not 10 days. 10 days is pretty intense. It's quite a long trip to be away with your colleagues. So I feel you on that one.
I'm like, oh shit. But I have very deep, complicated feelings about it. But anyways, I have to do it, and I would appreciate you.
Yeah, so you want to try to make the best of the situation. So, well, I definitely welcome Charlotte's thoughts on this as well. I would say one thing for me that worked for me as well when I was in those situations of overnight trips and things like that is explaining to people, especially as a new employee, like you're really enjoying yourself, you're loving getting to know everyone. It's been great, the day's been wonderful, whatever positive thing you can say. But then you can also explain, I need to go rest and recharge for tomorrow, or I'm someone who likes to be really organized for the next day. Again, you don't really have to explain yourself, but maybe just give them a little bit of context of it's not actually personal to them, that it's just so you can be the best and refreshed for the next day to have another full day of activities. And then if it's appropriate, if you feel comfortable, you can always say, if there's an emergency or something comes up, you can let me know. But otherwise, I'll see you first thing tomorrow at breakfast time.
Great. Thank you.
Charlotte, was there anything you would add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good way. I mean, one thing that I have used before is often it's very similar. It's about kind of talking about your preferred working style. I'm personally, might be surprising for someone who's hosting a bunch of LinkedIn audio events, but I'm actually really quite introverted. And when I used to have to travel for work all the time, that was just something that I made sure that people knew that it's not personal. It's not about you. It's just honestly, if I don't get this time, I'm useless to you. So it's very similar advice. I mean, if you don't feel comfortable having that kind of direct conversation, I mean, the other thing you can just do is you can just go. You don't have to give everyone an explanation for why you're not hanging out after dinner, in the bar or whatever it is that people are doing. You don't owe them an explanation if you don't want to.
Yeah, I think it is important too for you, Amy, since you're new, that you do want to set that clear with your boss as well to help manage their expectations. So, because I think it's so important, this has come up in my own workplace of your manager can't read your mind, so they don't know, how far they can push things or how much they can ask of you unless you're able to communicate with them directly and say like, okay, this is my limit, or this is how much I can take on right now, or this is how much time I can spend in the day, and then I need to excuse myself and recharge for tomorrow.
I think that's brilliant. Sorry, don't want to take up too much time, but one last question that I think might apply to a lot of us. Do you have any input on how to deal with difficult and demanding like personalities, especially those who are in a superior position?
What do you mean when you say difficult personalities? Anything in specific?
Just like really demanding. And unfortunately, the situation I'm in now, there is this blend of the professional and personal, right? I've written about this, thought about this a lot. Didn't really expect it to be this intimate, but I have person I work for she's brilliant, but also she's just very a difficult personality. So while I am, again, new, and kind of figuring out, if this is going to work or not, my main objective is to maintain as calm and a productive situation for myself as possible, while also being productive. So obviously boundaries are things that, I mean, they're permeable, but selectively permeable, I should say. But people are always going to challenge those, right? So just some quick thoughts on how to deal with situations where you have to engage with folks, especially folks who are like above you, like who might challenge them continuously.
Yeah. I mean, I think again, it comes down to communication and being open with them that, you're new in the organization. You want to work in the best way possible with everyone and make sure that you are also able to perform to the best of your ability. So you could always approach it from, I'd really love to talk to you about how can we best work together. And you can use that exact language that you just said, I really want us to remain calm and professional in our interactions together. So I'd love to understand a bit more about you, because sometimes it's about understanding how does that person best work and a bit more about their personality, and you being able to know how you should flex your style so that you can minimize the conflict and be able to give them what they need without it interfering with your style and the way that you need to work best too.
Right, thanks.
Sure. Charlotte, I don't know if you'd add anything to that. But
just to say, I think that's excellent advice. The other thing I would say is, remember, when you're in an interaction that feels difficult to you because maybe you don't like the way the other person is speaking to you, or you don't like the way that they are approaching something, that their style, their way of interacting, it's not personal, it's not about you. And so being able to kind of remind yourself of that in the moment when you're starting to feel maybe upset or triggered, to just take a few deep breaths and remember, them behaving that way is about them. It's about what's going on for them and the way they see the world and the way they interact with the world. It's not your fault, and it's not personal to you. So kind of taking that step back and thinking, okay, how do I take care of myself in this situation? How do I stay true to myself in this situation? And I think, that often for me allows me to keep it that calm and professional, because I'm not taking it personally. I'm thinking, okay, this person's having a really bad day or a week or a month or year or entire career. I mean, who knows? But it's not about you.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Do we have anybody else who would like to pop up and say anything? Any more questions for anyone today? Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to come in with a question here. Megan, how can people find you, follow you, or work with you? And work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. All three if you like. You can definitely connect with me here on LinkedIn, Megan Camacho. If you are someone who's into things like the perfectionism, boundaries, burnt out, I share a lot of that on my Instagram as well, which is at balanced.mother. And my coaching company is called Balanced Mother Coaching. I offer one-to-one services. And I also have a group program, which is starting again at the end of October. So this is all around career and motherhood, being able to ditch the guilt around all of those things that come up when you're balancing both. We also go into things like perfectionism, boundaries, identifying your energy zappers. So all of these topics that we're talking about today, because they do make such a difference in every aspect of our life. So if you're interested in something like that, if that sounds like it could help to support you, I'd love to have a chat with you. So feel free to message me here on LinkedIn and I can give you all the details and find out if it would be a good fit for you.
That sounds absolutely perfect if you're a working mother, maybe coming back from a career break or wanting to make a new phase in your career where you've got those boundaries in place and it's really working for you. Oh, Mia is coming on here. Mia, let me allow you to speak, hopefully. Great.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can.
You can, yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So I had to take a call for the last 10 minutes. I think I missed the last 10 minutes of the call, but I wanted to respond to Amy because I had a very similar situation when I first graduated from college. And honestly, it's been difficult for me my whole career. I'm 48. I'm going to be 49 this November. And so I know what it's like to be right out of the workforce, and it's tough. I get it. I've been the victim of racism and sexism in finance. I've been all in banking my whole life. Different banks, you can name all the major ones, but and I went to UCLA for my MBA while I was working full time and going to school part time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, in answer to your question, I don't think I had a good excuse for anything. I was attending everything, and I hated it. And when I got engaged, I thought that that might at least alleviate some of the, I don't know, just guys trying to hit on you and then at these networking things. So, you know, that ring on the finger doesn't help. So then I had to have kids to do it. And once I had kids, I was able to finally set my boundaries, because I literally had to, because I had to work full time and parent full time. And now I have two kids that are 13 and 10. So they're a handful. And so my advice to you is, when I interviewed for my last job, which I've been there since I started during COVID, May of 2020. I'm super happy where I am. Currently, they are very supportive. The first bank, I think, that I've ever felt like I've been supported fully, but you have to set those boundaries. When I interviewed for them, I said, listen, I said, I'm coming from a place where I was with the bank for 9 years, and they know me, my family, they've seen me raise my family, and I need flexibility, and I need to work from home when I can. I live very far from downtown LA, because my kids go to a very good public school in South Bay, and so I have a very horrible commute, and so does my ex. So I'm going through a divorce too, so it's very hard. But regardless, you have to set your boundaries, and I don't know what point in your career you feel comfortable doing it. For me, I didn't feel comfortable doing it until I had kids, and really, I haven't had a bank that has really embraced it since, other than when I joined my current bank. So my best advice to you is, whenever you feel most comfortable, I don't think you would ever even make an excuse for why you don't feel comfortable being at a social event. But I get it. There's pressure because you just started a new company and you need to show your face. So do that. Put a smile on there, but just be guarded, because people are going to want to take advantage of the situation that you're a young female, pretty, brand new. And unfortunately, that's the world we live in. And so I just want you to be super careful about that. And you set your boundaries, and you don't need an excuse. You just tell them you're tired. Mm-hmm. You need to go back, and you need to work on a better you for tomorrow. And that's it. End of story. And if they fire you because of that, then it's not the right place for you.
Thank you so much for sharing with such openness and vulnerability there. Thank you for sharing that experience. It sounds like you have been having a tough time.
Yeah, but I go on to these LinkedIn calls all the time, and it helps me a lot that other people are going through it, and I just want to help other people that are possibly starting their careers, and I like to mentor people.
Yeah.
On the side. So Amy, if you ever want to reach out to me, you can.
It's really powerful, Mia, that you share your experiences, because I think it is so important that we recognize we're not alone in these situations. We're not the only one that feels this way. And sometimes just knowing that, it makes such a big difference to anyone who's going through a difficult time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mia, for your honesty and bravery. And I just messaged you.
Okay.
You are truly, you're truly amazing. It takes a lot of courage to speak about those things, and I empathize. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Amy.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. We have come to the top of the hour, and being respectful of your time, I just want to say thank you so much to Megan again for coming to talk to us today. And thank you to, you're welcome. Thank you, Amy and Mia, for sharing and your questions. Don't forget, you can find Megan and I both here on LinkedIn. You can follow us, you can message us if you want to know more. Megan has this wonderful opportunity coming up if you are a mother who is returning to work. And if you're not, and that doesn't sound like you, I'd just like to say that I also have 5 spots in my one-to-one program that are still open before the end of the year. So if you're looking towards the end of this year thinking, I don't know how I'm going to make it that far, and I really want to do it well and with ease and balance and some support, pop me a message and I can give you all of the details. And thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Bye, everyone.